If you want to understand how dictators are truly made, don't look at how they defeat their enemies. Look at the moment they destroy their own friends. That moment came in 1934, and it changed Germany forever. Berlin in 1934 was a city that carried tension in the air. The streets were full, the flags were everywhere, and yet beneath the surface there was unease. Germany had not simply changed, it had been reshaped by force, speed, and ambition. At the center of that transformation stood Adolf Hitler, a man who had risen from political obscurity to become chancellor in a remarkably short time. But his rise was not a solo achievement. It had been powered by a movement, and more importantly, by men who believed they were part of a revolution that would completely transform German society. Among those men, none was more important than Ernst Röhm. Röhm was not a typical political figure. He was rough, direct, and deeply embedded in the violent street politics that had defined Germany after World War I. As the head of the SA, the stormtroopers, he commanded a force that numbered in the millions. These were not polished soldiers but hardened fighters, men who had clashed with opponents in the streets and helped dismantle political resistance. They believed they were the backbone of a new Germany, one that would not just change leadership, but overturn the entire system. For Röhm and his followers, the revolution was not finished. In fact, they believed it had only just begun. This belief created a dangerous divide within the Nazi movement itself. While Röhm and the SA pushed for what they called a second revolution, one that would challenge economic elites and reshape society, Hitler's priorities had shifted. Now in power, he faced a different reality. The German army, the Reichswehr, remained a powerful institution, and its leaders viewed the growing strength of the SA with deep suspicion. Röhm's ambitions, particularly his desire to merge the army into his own command, were seen as a direct threat. At the same time, conservative elites and industrial leaders, whose support Hitler needed, were increasingly uncomfortable with the SA's radicalism and unpredictability. Hitler found himself at a crossroads. On one side were the men who had helped him rise, who believed in a radical transformation of Germany and remained loyal to the revolutionary spirit. On the other side were the institutions that could secure his long-term power: the army, the political establishment, and the economic elite. It was not simply a political choice. It was a decision about the future direction of the regime itself. And Hitler understood something crucial. A movement built on chaos and mass mobilization was useful for gaining power, but it was dangerous to maintain once power had been achieved. By June 1934, the situation had reached a breaking point. Pressure from the army intensified, with clear signals that action needed to be taken against Röhm and the SA leadership. At the same time, rumors spread within the regime about possible unrest and instability. Whether these threats were real or exaggerated, they provided the justification Hitler needed. What followed was not a spontaneous act, but a carefully planned operation that would reshape the structure of power in Germany. On June 30th, Hitler personally initiated the crackdown. Traveling to Bavaria, he ordered the arrest of Röhm and other SA leaders who had gathered there. The operation quickly expanded beyond its initial targets. Across Germany, arrests were carried out, and individuals identified as threats, whether political rivals, critics, or simply inconvenient figures, were taken into custody. The purge extended beyond the SA, reaching into various corners of political life. It was swift, decisive, and brutal. Röhm himself was captured without resistance. There was no dramatic confrontation, no public reckoning. Instead, he was detained and later given the opportunity to take his own life. When he refused, he was executed. His death symbolized more than the removal of a rival. It marked the end of the revolutionary phase of the Nazi movement. The man who had once been a key architect of Hitler's rise was eliminated not by external enemies, but by the very system he had helped build. Over the course of several days, hundreds of people were killed. The exact number remains uncertain, but the message was unmistakable. This was not merely a purge of disloyal elements. It was a demonstration of absolute authority. The SS, which played a central role in carrying out the killings, emerged from the operation with increased power and influence. In contrast to the SA's mass and disorder, the SS represented discipline, control, and direct loyalty to Hitler. The balance of power within the regime had shifted decisively. What followed was equally significant. Rather than concealing the violence, Hitler openly justified it. He presented the purge as a necessary action to protect the state from treason and instability. More strikingly, The killings were retroactively legalized. This move signaled a fundamental transformation in the nature of the German state. Law was no longer an independent framework governing political action. Instead, it became an extension of the leader's will. What Hitler declared necessary became, by definition, lawful. The impact of these events was immediate. The German army, reassured by the elimination of the SA threat, pledged its loyalty to Hitler. This support proved if. When Paul von Hindenburg died shortly afterward, there were no remaining institutional barriers strong enough to challenge Hitler's authority. He combined the roles of president and chancellor, consolidating power in a way that left no room for opposition. Germany had effectively become a dictatorship. The events of the Night of the Long Knives represent a critical turning point in modern history. They illustrate how revolutions can be reshaped or even dismantled by those who lead them. The Nazi movement had begun with elements of mass mobilization and internal diversity, but these were gradually eliminated in favor of centralized control. The purge was not just about removing specific individuals. It was about redefining the nature of power within the regime. Perhaps the most important lesson lies in the nature of political consolidation. External opposition is often seen as the primary threat to a movement, but internal divisions can be far more dangerous. By eliminating Rome and the SA leadership, Hitler removed a potential source of instability, but he also sent a clear message. Loyalty alone was not enough. Survival depended entirely on alignment with the leader's vision, and that vision could change at any moment. In the aftermath, Germany did not erupt into chaos. Instead, it grew quieter. The absence of open resistance did not indicate stability, but rather the success of fear as a tool of governance. The purge demonstrated that power could be exercised without restraint and justified without accountability. It marked the moment when the Nazi regime moved beyond political maneuvering into a system defined by absolute authority and controlled violence. In this sense, the revolution did not end because it failed. It ended because it was no longer needed in its original form. The energy and disorder that had fueled Hitler's rise were replaced by structure and control. The movement that had once promised transformation became an instrument of domination, and the men who had believed they were shaping the future found themselves erased from it, their role reduced to a brief and ultimately expendable chapter in a much larger story.